welcome to View from the Top. My name is Modile Sharafa Isuf, and I thank you for tuning in today. Electricity is regularly cited as the chief obstacle to Nigeria's economic growth. With a population of about 170 million people, Nigeria produces less grid-connected electricity than a typical major British city. On a per capita basis, Nigeria has less power than most major African countries. For years now, the lack of electricity has cut into profit margins and increased operating overheads. Nigerians had hoped that the privatization process would remove the obstacles and address the problems. But 1 year down the line, electricity supply actually seems to have worsened, or maybe it is just not getting better as quickly as Nigerians expected. Professor Chinedu Nebo is the man who stays awake at night, not necessarily because there's no electricity to power his air conditioners, but because he is trying to find solutions to the many problems of the power sector. The Minister of Power joins me today on View from the Top, and I thank him very much. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
My pleasure.
Before we launch into our conversation, here is a brief biography. Born on June 3, 1952, Professor Nebo is a graduate of the South Dakota School of Mines and Technology, where he received a first-class Bachelor of Science degree in mining engineering. He also has a Master of Science degree in metallurgical engineering and a PhD in materials engineering and science. Professor Nebo was appointed as the Minister of Power in 2013, but before then he was the Vice Chancellor at the Federal University, Oye-Ekiti. And prior to that, he was Vice Chancellor at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka. He had also served as Deputy Vice Chancellor in the Enugu State University of Science and Technology. Professor Chinedu Nebo served as member of Governing Board of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, National Steering Committee on Vision 2020, Governing Council of Nigeria Institute of International Affairs, and Enugu State Development Committee. He's an archdeacon in the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, Diocese of Nike. Professor Chinedu Nebo received the Officer of the Order of the Niger Award in 2009 and the National Productivity Order of the Merit Award in 2012. Honorable Minister, last year you promised that power supply would be stable in the country by October 2040. But the average supply in February this year, we're told, was about 3,500 megawatts, as against the national demand of about 15 to 20,000 megawatts. What exactly is the problem that seems to be continuing?
There is a myriad of problems in the electricity infrastructure in Nigeria. What the current administration inherited was what you could look at as a marasmic kid or a kwashiorkor kid. It was so bad that both the distribution and transmission infrastructure had been totally dilapidated. In addition to that, the generation capacity, installed capacity, was so much greater than available capacity, and because most of the turbines were in a state of disrepair. Before this administration also came, most of these large hydropower plants, Kainji, Jeba, and Shiroro, had not been overhauled. So many things had gone wrong in the power sector. As the Nigerian population was growing and the demographics were shifting, and more people were moving to the urban centers, you found out that with very little investment in the electricity sector or the power sector, most of the cities were now becoming overcrowded for the electrical facilities designed for those cities. In addition to that, most of the transformers, virtually every major city in Nigeria have transformers that are overstressed and overused. Most of them had gone so bad. So when this current administration came into being, they started looking at how to address this issue, and that was why Mr. President, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, decided to make power one of the focal points of the transformation agenda. He launched the power sector roadmap in August 2010. That was actually years before I became Minister of Power. and has since been driving the process. So actually, if you look at the level of decay and the level of infrastructural abandonment, as it were, for decades, you would see that there wasn't much to write home about electricity in Nigeria. However, a lot has happened. Let me first address the issue of why didn't we see so much change? You know, for the first time in the history of Nigeria, go back to the records, no time in the history of this country were we able to sustain over 4,000 megawatts for 2 or 3 days. For the first time, we did that for over 2 months going. The vandals have always attacked the gas pipelines whenever we hit 4,500 megawatts. For instance, by November, going into December, we were averaging 4,200, 4,300 megawatts peak generation. And that does not include spinning reserves, of course, which is just there to make sure that the entire transmission infrastructure was both reliable and stable. So, at the end of the day, you find out that each time we have attack on the gas pipelines, it's usually when we are at the peak. So they go and vandalize. They bring us down to places where most of us are really cringing in pains because we lose up to 1,000 megawatts, sometimes 1,200 megawatts, depending on the number of pipelines that are vandalized. Most recently, just coming into the new year, we were doing for over 4,000, and they hit just around Christmas time. As we tried to repair that early January, they hit again, brought us down to 4,100. And while we're trying to get that, they hit again. So we eventually ramped up again, and when we were just rejoicing that everything was ramping up again, they hit again. Just 2 weeks ago, ELPA was blown up by these vandals again. So it hasn't been easy. When you look at the entire thing and the fact that without the repairs, overhauling of the hydropower plants that are taking a long time, many of these things had just gone to the dogs, as it were. But very thankfully, things are changing with regards to the hydropower plants, both Kainji, Jeba, Shiroro, and if you give me an opportunity, I will address what is happening in all 3 of them.
We will definitely address what's happening in all these power plants, but the Mambila hydropower plant was initiated about 30 years ago, and it's supposed to be a 3,050 megawatt project. Why is it taking so long for this to take off, despite the fact that it's being touted as a possible game changer in all of this electricity fiasco?
You use the right word, game changer, in every ramification. You know, remember Zungeru too had been on the drawing board for over 30 years. It was President Goodluck Jonathan that flagged off the construction of the Zungeru hydropower plant on the 28th of May 2013. And work is going on. You can take your crew there and see what is happening already in Zungeru. That will give 700 megawatts when completed. Mambila has also been a dream, a vision in the pipeline, and just on paper for over 40 years actually. It was this same president that made sure we drove Mambila to a place where the contract has been awarded to Chinese company, the funding has been arranged,